Private cars, trucks, SUVs, are you listening, man? Let Eastern Motors put you in a car today. Let Eastern Motors finance it all the way.
Welcome to the Saturday Night Power Hour, where we were short on games, but high on energy and intrigue. So we got a lot to talk about on today's show. I'm Ryan. That's Jake and Safe. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday evening.
Boys, another exciting Saturday.
It was.
I mean, a lot to talk about from first face-off to final whistle.
Yeah, I just looked at the RPI. Some real interesting shakeups there. Listen, man, it's on me. We'll be better. We'll get back in the film room. Look at the tape. I should have known that it's just physically impossible for a game at the Carrier Dome to not go, or whatever they call it, Radio Shack Dome, to not go at least 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think we got to adjust TV windows just like college basketball needs to adjust TV windows.
Yes.
At least 2 hours 15. Like they're sort of getting there with women's time slots at 2 hours 30, but then that goes over.
Women definitely should, but the women should have been 2 hours 30 like 7 years ago.
Yeah, now it needs to be 3 years. Now it needs to be 3 hours, and men's windows need to be 2.5.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, there isn't any games that go within the 2 hour window.
Didn't Hopkins and Maryland go? Or Hopkins, Ohio State? One of those Maryland games the last.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, the one when we were live streaming. One of the
Maryland, Ohio State. Yeah, Maryland Hopkins finished under 2 hours.
That finished under 2 hours. And I think the game before, the Penn State Rutgers game, finished under 2 hours.
Listen, man, Big Ten, defense.
There's a trade-off with the defense.
As Nico Harrison would say, defense wins championships.
Defense also helps. Yeah, defense wins championships.
Defense means fewer possessions, quicker game. Yeah, we had a lot of TV games. A lot of TV games.
Defensive games.
Less face-off time.
That's what I always said. I was like, at the end of the day, by war with the face-off, I was like, we'll win it. Will be TV and money, because like if there's more goals, it's just gonna mess up the time slots that people do for TV programs.
There's never anything that will ever convince. There's never in the history of the world has a sport or TV network or whatever been like, what if we make this less? What if we make this, take less time? You mean we have fewer time to sell ads? Well,
exactly.
No.
That's why the NBA would never reduce the number of timeouts. They're like, they love it. That takes
NBA. Yeah, it's the most wonderful time of the year. The NBA on ESPN and ABC with the good old commercial 20-second sponsored segment. Back to commercial.
Nice.
In between quarters. Get yourself 7 minutes of commercials between quarters.
It's terrible, dude. You got that. You got shout out Chris, TNT doing remote broadcasts.
Shout out Chris getting to be in the announcer's room. You could hijack the game at any moment.
Not great. Broadcast. The state of broadcasting in the United States is not great. Not great at all. I don't think there was anything too bad.
We didn't really have many. Out of the 4 ESPN games, were any of them on site today? I couldn't tell.
Clark and Cotter were probably at the Dome.
Dixon
and Jules were there.
Okay.
They were there. Yeah, they were there.
Good state of broadcasting because softball got rained out. Yale Princeton got moved to ESPN2, got moved to the Deuce. They used to have the national title game on the Deuce.
They have
now we're getting regular season meaningless Ivy League
the national title game on ESPN. Didn't the national title game used to be on ESPN?
I was
back on ESPN.
Yeah, I always remember the Deuce, but never on the
I
ESPN
think in the early years it
Maybe
was on
the
ESPN.
very end. I was gonna
No,
say,
it was on ESPN until like
was it the
2015, 2016. There was that one
2014.
semis on ESPN too, and then on the Big
Oh,
Four
90s
championship.
still on ESPN. Okay, there was.
Yeah, it's still on ESPN, but it was the semifinals are on ESPN too. That's usually been the case, but there was a stretch in the 2010s where they moved the title game in ESPN 2.
Yes, yeah. It was that one year we let Denver play in the title game and nobody watched.
Not to be confused with the Big East Championship this year. Hey-o.
Brother,
We let it in Denver.
That Big East Championship in Denver with Georgetown, Providence, Marquette, and Villanova, there might be combined less than 100 people across all three games.
John Thompson's rolling over in his grave.
No one there. They need to just move
it to the East Coast.
Yeah, like we can just
new rules. Georgetown hosts. This
whole thing. There's how many conferences should actually do a rotation with their conference tournament? Because there are way more conferences that do this than should God bless the A10. Love the A10. There's no need for the A10 to be doing a rotation of who hosts the conference tournament. Like, you can just go to the one seed.
Yeah, unless it's like a set neutral site, like the ACC with Charlotte or the Ivy League used to have with Columbia. I'm fine with just giving it to the top seed.
Yeah, I am too. I think the Big Ten doing it's fine because all of the stadiums they have are good facilities.
And they're not too terribly far apart. Like we'll revisit that discussion if an Oregon or USC had men's lacrosse. But
even still, I say if I remember when like Hopkins and Maryland played the Big Ten championship at Michigan. It's like, you know what, maybe this just doesn't need to happen. maybe that game would have been better off if it was played at Homewood or College Park, you know. Or like when Penn State, I think the year Penn State and Hopkins played at Rutgers, did that have a good crowd? I think it did.
I went to the semi ones. I didn't go back to the final. But yeah, it was pretty decent.
I think it was, yeah. It's, and again, that's
also kind of like near peak Rutgers. So
yeah,
Rutgers at 2021.
Rutgers was in it in 19, I think, weren't they? Yeah, because Penn State beat Rutgers at Rutgers in the first semifinal.
Wasn't one of the COVID years 2021, 2022 in New Brunswick? I thought it was.
No, it goes every. It was Maryland, Hopkins, Ohio State, Michigan, Rutgers, and then 2021 it was at Michigan. No, 2021 was at Penn State because Penn State was the last team that didn't get it. So 2021 was at Penn State. Then it reset. 2022 was at Maryland. 2023 was at Homewood. 2024 last year was at Ohio State. And 2025 this year is at Michigan. So next year will be at Rutgers, and 2027 will be back at Panzer. But actually, with hopefully, you know, cross your fingers. Never know. Fans in attendance. Yeah, like this. The A-Sun does a what? Dude, what? Who is going to go to A-Sun conference tournament played in Jacksonville if Jacksonville isn't in like the games at Jacksonville aren't there, or Air Force, or that's just who needs that?
Air Force, yeah.
I mean, that's just unnecessary. Big East, honestly, I even argue. I don't know.
Like
I
New
mean,
York
I guess
City, like the basketball.
I would just give it to whoever the one seed is, honestly.
Yeah, one seed.
Like if Georgetown wins it every year, okay. Providence and Villanova can just drive to Georgetown.
Take the Acela.
It's not great for Marquette and Denver, but Marquette and Denver are flying anywhere, everywhere, no matter what. Like,
remember when they had the Big East tournament in Marquette when they played it in Milwaukee?
The Big East tournament was in Marquette. What was that, 2 years ago? Last year, 2 years ago? And Marquette didn't make it.
They've had it twice, I think.
Well, I mean, look, the Big East has been there for Big East. It's been a conference for like 10 years. So, well, longer than that than the old formation.
Well, anyway, I do like having the one seed getting the benefit of hosting a conference tournament. You know what else I like?
Lacrosse.
This podcast.
Yeah. Do you still like lacrosse, Ryan? Okay, that's good. Just checking.
For Schadenfreude for one of my rivals,
You like lacrosse. You like lacrosse right now. You don't love lacrosse. Maybe that's a better.
Right, I like lacrosse, don't love it, but I do like how a certain rival of mine went winless in their conference. That's taken the edge off of my alma mater's nosedive.
Which one?
Both.
2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. But on that note, yeah, why don't we smash that like button?
Indeed.
And hit that subscribe button.
Indeed.
And the notifications button when we do go live, when we promise you that it's not. So let us get 1 hour on the clock, beginning now. And where shall we start, gentlemen?
That's a good question.
A lot of good games. So
a lot of hot, burning topics. Say 41.
Chronological order, reverse chronological order.
Let's go safe pick.
I was going to say, I was like, let's just get Hopkins out of the way. Consummatum est, as the good Lord said on the first Easter Sunday. It is finished. The season is finished.
Not for lack of effort though. Hopkins played a pretty good game, but they still fall 13-12 to Penn State.
I had a glimmer of hope at the beginning of the season, but my expectations were low going in. I thought this was going to be a rough year. The 6-2 start, kind of masked that. But again, that was now in hindsight against some teams that ended up not being that great either. It's beating Virginia is always great, but we kind of made that joke about 2022. Like, it's a bad year to beat Virginia because Virginia wasn't that good. Georgetown, it's kind of outside of the top 25 for like RPI wise for like the last, the third of the season. So, and we all know what happened with Loyola. Towson's actually going to end up look like our best win now, especially the Tigers make the tournament shape. But I love whoever wrote the post-game recap to Hopkins' loss to Penn State in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. Gentlemen, if you will indulge me. The naysayers will look only at the final record. For those in that camp, here it is, 6-8. As I walked from the press box across the Panzer Stadium field at Penn State to the sideline, where the Johns Hopkins men's lacrosse coaching staff and players were scattered, I knew there was more, much more, to the 2025 Blue Jays than that record. Like all seasons that come to an end of the ultimate goal, there were tears, a lot of them. There were hugs, especially for the seniors and graduate students who will never put on a Johns Hopkins uniform again. The finality of the last game, that's when it becomes real. The ending is always sudden and painful for those who won't return. There's no way to prepare for that feel. For those who don't camp out among the naysayers, Saturday's game, which ended with a disappointing 13-12 Penn State victory in the Big Ten quarterfinal, should provide excitement. The fourth quarter, where several games have gotten away from the group of Blue Jays this season, was different this time. The belief, the effort, and for the most part, the executions were all there. So, I mean, amazing.
Here's the issue with
one of the most emo
naysayers.
Post-game recaps I've ever read in my entire life.
Honestly,
it's incredible.
Here's
the issue.
My post in 2019 when we got blown out and beat was and the Sixers lost, and I was like, "What's happening to my life?"
Honestly, Kawhi, right? Well, yeah, Kawhi Leonard's buzzer beater was the same day, right?
It was all within 3 hours. That's right.
That's right. Hopkins was the last game.
And the Game of Thrones. And the Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, right? The lackluster Game of Thrones finale. It was all the same night.
It was a horrible night, gentlemen. It was a horrible night for your boy.
The Game of Thrones, Kawhi's buzzer beater, and Notre Dame detonating the end of the Petro.
The series finale. It was just like, oh my god, this thing sucks. No, for sure. But I was like, that was less emo, I feel, than what this one.
I mean, no, it was the penultimate Game of Thrones episode. It was the one where out of nowhere. Yeah, because the PGA Championship was the night, because I went to the PGA Championship and I remember, the big Game of Thrones finale's tonight. It was the one that pissed off everyone, the second to last episode, where all of a sudden the hero of the show is all of a sudden the big villain.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was thinking it was the one where they all fight at the,
Either way, yeah. What is now? Here's the one issue with calling out the naysayers and everything. What were the preseason expectations with this Johns Hopkins team? I know you guys will blow this up in my face when we talk about Syracuse later, but remember what the preseason expectations were for the Jays?
Make the tournament. They were a top 10. They were a top 10 team. I don't know if it was like make the Final Four, but they were a top 10 team. So obviously, the expectations were to. They failed. Look, if you're if you're Johns Hopkins, if you're Virginia, if you're Syracuse, who is not in the same spot as those two teams at the moment, but probably the last team in the field right now. Yeah, I mean the minimum expectation is to make the NCAA tournament always. Honestly, aside from like mentioning the naysayers. Like I think that's like. I mean,
it's still it is. Anyone who's played the sport knows there's always going to be that final game, whether it's your high school career, your college career, where it all suddenly comes to an end and the emotions flows, and that's an appropriate post outside.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. The naysayers bit is a little like. I mean, at the end of the day, the naysayers were right. Like you went 6-8.
Credit to those. What's the tweet? Credit to those who said I couldn't do it. They were right.
Yeah, shout out to my. They pulled that one. They nailed that one. Yeah, I really couldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought. I mean, I'll let Safe and Adam's in the chat as well. Talk about Hopkins. I'll talk about Penn State because Gil had a question in the chat that I think is an interesting one. So yeah, let's Safe talk about Hopkins. But I thought they played their best two games in Big Ten play the last 2 weeks. And this was a good game. Hopkins would lead at halftime. Did not lead at halftime. I think story of the game for Hopkins, unfortunately, is kind of story of their season, missed opportunities. They had a 6-5 lead in the first half, and a couple turnovers there that Penn State turned into a lead at halftime. Felt like that kind of let it get away from them a little bit. And then a big comeback in the fourth quarter. Played really, really well in that fourth quarter. And unfortunately, poor Chuck Rawson hyperextends his knee while trying to dodge and tie the game at a 13-all. And then weird sequence at the end with they called a slash on Scott Smith, which looked a little iffy there. Maybe Hopkins could have got the ball back if not for that. But it was a good game. And I think Hopkins did play better the last 2 weeks. But I'll let Safe, kind of talk about it more.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much what I was looking for towards the team. After the Rutgers loss and the Michigan loss, I was just I just kind of want to see them play a little bit better. I didn't kind of get that at the Penn State game, but at Maryland, I saw that, and then again, Penn State, the tournament game, definitely saw that. But yeah, kind of the normal things that not normal, but the things that stymied this team throughout the year, the second half, because I think it was a tale of two seasons. The beginning 6-2, and then going 0-6 to close it out. But yeah, during the 0-6, and to an extent, even when Hopkins was humming early, I've reminisced about the North Carolina game, just getting down early, or the at least one, if not multiple, 12, 15, 17-minute long scoring droughts during the game. It was just kills you, which kills every team. If you don't get the ball in that
scoring droughts might be the story of this season.
And
across the board.
Much like Adam, I too am excited about the future. I kind of felt like this season was going to be a transitional year. Jake, you bless your heart. You did your best to get me off the ledge. The preseason, and you were right.
But then when Melendez doesn't get hurt, which
that's exactly it. It's injuries. They kept, and maybe you're a team like this should have been able to weather the storm or find a solution for when the Russell went down. But there was a good amount of injuries for everyone. But I was I kind of felt like the season was going to be at least a transition, or just I'll see a new Hopkins, and didn't know what I would get. I was pleased with everything in the beginning season, but yeah, as those injuries piled on, the performance of the team just started to nosedive, in Big Ten play. But that's kind of the nature of the conference. It's a very tough conference. The games are just brutal physically and obviously also mentally to an extent. But just I think they kind of piled on. Maybe the Penn State game was kind of the nadir of the season, the second half of the season for the Jays. But yeah, it's a proud program. They bounced back. Pat Maryland tight going into the fourth. Valiant comeback against Penn State. Couple bounces the other way. Maybe they survive to play another game next week. But it wasn't meant to be. I was like, and there's a couple people reached out to you, Jake, on the main Twitter channel to talk about like long term. I mean, again, maybe because springboarded after like how I kind of started a couple of weeks ago. That threw that out there. Maybe do like a mid-season pod or off-season pod about the Jays specifically, state of the program type pod. But yeah, I mean, like I'm still excited about this team. I feel like they have a good future. I feel like Milliman, is capable of getting them to the Final Four. I'm just going to need to see it. Obviously they got close to 2 years after kind of like bringing the program out of the depths in the immediate post the Petro era, but it was tough to not get there last year, being so close. Overtime game to Virginia, but that had the same type of thing. I think it was like 17 or 22 minutes. The final 22 minutes of the Virginia game happens to score. That kind of feels like the theme of this year, even in some of the wins. So I mean, I already saw the FanLex forum already started to go to 2026. I think with like 10 minutes left. The game today, which was kind of funny. Maybe it was almost like a reverse jinx because Hopkins kind of had a little bit of a comeback percolating at the end there, but it didn't happen for them this year. Adam just kind of said it a few times in the chat, and we talked about it as well. The team is quite young, so overwhelming percentage of the points should be coming back. Hope nobody jumps out, gets out of here, gets out of Dodge in the portal over the off season. But assuming that everybody who's on the team doesn't transfer out, or the contributors don't transfer out, we're going to have a large proportion of the offense coming back. The defense, which I thought was going to be like a kind of a the strength of the team program, but kind of maybe philosophy or the double teaming, just didn't feel like it was in sync even when we were kind of doing well at the beginning of the season. So, that I think that may need to have a shakeup. And, I don't know really if Milliman needs to be more hands-on with the offense, or he needs to maybe look outward. But if he does look outward, then, that's another offensive coordinator. I guess it would maybe potentially be 5, in this time with the Jays. So, but it's neither here nor there. If it works, they bounce back and have a, quarterfinal, Final Four type team. No one's going to care that it was like 4 other OCs before the new guy. But that's kind of the things in the offseason I'm thinking about. What are they going to kind of do with the defense? Replace certain seniors. How is this offensive group going to be able to grow up and take that next step? I kind of saw flashes of that 5-goal spurt against Ohio State, the way that they kind of closed out today, the way that they played against Maryland, for those first 3 quarters. I see it. I was like, oh, you can kind of almost emulate it.
It's a hard league to not be. It's a hard league to struggle in. I mean, it just it's when you're not scoring goals and you're playing against elite defenses and elite goalies every week, it just gets hard. I go back to it. I mean, way different scenarios, but I think you saw with Maryland last year. I mentioned this a lot. They weren't playing well on offense, and they just kept playing great defenses every week. And it's like, they ain't going to help you. And I think you saw it when they got out of it. They played better. I thought Hopkins. We'll see what they do in goal. Jelina's played well the last 2 weeks. At least gives them a senior with some experience in the room. Maybe they should have moved Collison to attack earlier because I thought that helped a lot. I'm sure he'll play there next year. So we'll see.
Especially when Russell was out.
Yeah.
I was just like that right there. It's like, okay, maybe
They needed somebody else, another option. It got too easy to defend them when you're only pulling like one guy on the attack or two guys. So Penn State is interesting. Gil asked in the chat, can we just not count on Frassian anymore? Penn State's defense this year, I mean, the story for Penn State defensively for the last couple years since Joe Bucci came in was twofold. Their shorties were terrific, and they could kind of leave them on islands and didn't have to slide to them. And then they also obviously had a great matchup zone that they can go to quite a bit. And then Frassian would save 2 to 3 goals a game that other goalies just wouldn't. And that was a real weapon for them. And this year, I think they're playing defense like they still have those shorties, and like Frassian is saving 2 to 3 goals that he probably shouldn't. And that just hasn't happened this year. Their shorties are not as good, and I think you see them get beat when they're asked to defend one-on-one. And then they pack it in a lot defensively, and they kind of give up some time and room looks, some saves that, when your goalie's locked in, you probably make. But Frassian hadn't been locked into that in that same degree. I think you see this when Penn State does slide to their shorties, their rotations are – Hopkins had a lot of this today, where like they would just throw it backside or back up to the top and have tons of time and room step downs. Penn State had this trouble in the Ohio State game too, where they just could not defend Ohio State off the dodge. And once they started sliding, Ohio State just carved them up with passing it. So, yeah, I'm a little worried for Penn State's defense. The offense is great. Their face-off play has improved. Granted, it did struggle in the fourth quarter. Part of the Hopkins making this comeback was they had I think they won 7 of 8 face-offs in the fourth quarter. But, they got a great offense with Trainer, Lehman, Aquino, the freshman. Amon's really good. They play a lot of guys. Face-off plays improved for them. But, yeah, I watched this defense, and I don't think you play defense the way they did today in the NCAA tournament. I'm not sure you're sticking around too long in the, maybe you get one win. And I think they probably locked up a home game with this victory. So, playing a NCAA home game at Panzer is always a great advantage. Kind of saw that in a couple years ago when they played Princeton. But, yeah, I'm a little – I don't know. Frassian hasn't been the same guy this year. And their defense, I think, is a little weaker. They might have to rely on that zone a lot. And, look, that zone is great. It's always a great curveball when they throw it. I don't know how much you can rely on a zone like that for, can you do – I mean, they play it a lot, but can you get 2-3 quarters out of a zone? I don't know. So I think Penn State's a good team. There are a lot – you could do this with a lot of teams where you're on the flip side, you see some of a Notre Dame, for example, where you're watching them in the first quarter or the first half every week, and the offense looks non-existent. So lots of teams have weaknesses that they have to account for. That's part of this season where there's just not a great capital G great team. So we'll see. But yeah, I do think there's some worry for Penn State defensively. And we'll see how they do against Maryland. Matt mentions, Penn State detonated Maryland in this spot last year, in the Big Ten semifinals. Obviously different story this year with the way the two teams are coming in. But Maryland kind of handled Penn State pretty comfortably in the first game these two teams played in College Park. So we'll see how that one shakes out.
Yeah, the other Big Ten quarterfinal, Rutgers, another big Big Ten win, 11-8 win over Michigan in Ann Arbor. So that effectively puts an end to the Wolverines season. They were heading into the weekend as the first team out, but now they have really no way of adding on to that resume. And Rutgers puts the clamps on it, and kind of the same formula that got him those victories over Maryland and Hopkins during the season. And strong defense, strong goaltending gets them the victory, and Rutgers is moving on to the Big Ten semifinals next week.
I mean, I'm thinking of all the time we were speaking about Michigan the other day. Jake, they're just kind of laying edge here to Rutgers. Yeah, that did remind me of the Rutgers-Hopkins game. Kind of a close game. Rutgers has a bit of a spurt. The Hopkins game, they scored 5. Here they had a big third quarter with 4 goals, and that was kind of the difference in a 11-8 game. I mean, I'm not saying Rutgers is going to make a run, but I could see it. They did have a close game against Ohio State early on in the year. They obviously beat Maryland. The circumstances are going to be different for these games coming up here. But I don't know, man. If they keep doing it like this, if they just kind of grind it out, of course, the goalie Stollers is kind of really having a remarkable second half of Big Ten play. I'm a little bit concerned about the offense, whether or not they'll be able to find enough points. If they go up there against Ohio State and potentially either a Rutgers or a Penn State rematch. But this team just doesn't. The fight that the Scarlet Knights have. Gotta hand it to them. Gotta be impressed with the way that they're playing. This is a major game. I'm trying to remember. I think the first game against Michigan was on the road as well. So for them to kind of avenge that,
I don't think so. I think it was at Rutgers. Yeah, it was at Rutgers.
It was at Rutgers. Forgive me. Then able to still avenge that loss, but doing it at Ann Arbor. With the money on the line, the Big Ten play, everything, conference tournament play. So really impressive for them. It's going to stay in Ann Arbor for the rest of the Big Ten game. So neutral site. They played that Ohio State game. Looking at the schedule now.
At the road.
That was at Columbus. The Maryland game was at home, and the Penn State game early in the season. That was at Happy Valley. So, they won't be having to play these guys, at the, proper away game, with the neutral site being in Ann Arbor. So, who knows? We always kind of say conference tournament time, just get in, because, funny things happen once teams get into the conference tournaments. And, out to Rutgers here, you have big games by the defense holding Michigan to only 8 and, really just 4 goals after the 4-4 start to the game. So here comes the Scarlet Knights. We were saying, Jake, what team is going to be like the 2022 Brown, kind of messing things up a little bit for Selection Sunday. And, Rutgers comes in and steals a bid. That definitely is going to make everybody a lot tighter, especially some ACC teams. Good on Rutgers. And for Michigan, just 2 back-to-back disappointing performances. I said, I didn't know if there was going to be a hangover after giving up, those 5 goals against Ohio State to essentially lose the Big Ten championship, regular season championship, in such a stunning fashion with 5 minutes to play. But they're early on the game, it being tied, it looked like maybe there wasn't that much of a hangover, but kind of just 2 really disappointing performances by the Michigan Wolverines. After having a pretty solid conference play, gave up some games or non-conference play that they probably would have loved to have back, especially now because now they they have
listen, they beat Maryland, they won their Super Bowl, so good season, I guess.
I was going to say that Rutgers game was in Piscataway, but you guys answered it. I just had it on mute because I didn't know if you guys were picking up the rain on my air conditioner.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Raining with that, but
Rutgers.
I will point out Rutgers very, very funny. I mean, obviously the Big Ten's got a lot of depth to it, but it was kind of funny that Rutgers was like, didn't really do much to help the cause in non-con. They, the losses to Stony Brook and St. Joe's and UMass, and then they come around to Big Ten play and grab some pretty big wins in the process. It's kind of funny that they added to the depth of the conference in conference play they weren't in those games against Army or Princeton at all.
That cost them their season. I mean, not, but we got Mark in the chat. If Rutgers beats Stony Brook and who else they lose to?
UMass, they're in the convo.
Yeah, I mean they've got a top 5 win. They got the big win over Maryland, and they've beaten Michigan and Hopkins. That's the same resume as Syracuse. They got a top 5 win or it's actually a little better. Notre Dame's 6th in RPI, so they'd be in there without 2 bad losses that they suffered. No, yeah, they're a perfect. Adam didn't mention this. They're a perfect Big Ten team. Like they play good defense. They got great goalie play with Stoller. Gil mentioned only a sophomore, and they've been very. The thing is, I'll say if you want to give a boon case to them, it's like they've been very young on offense. A lot of inexperienced new guys on offense, and I think those guys took some time to come around. But I do like the pieces they have on offense. Colin Cardilla had a massive game today, 4 goals and 2 assists. And just a lot of other guys contributed. Hayden Sommer from midfield had 3 assists. JJ Ayalo, I like him. So they got some pieces there. I think the question is just, I mean, they're going to have the motivational gap compared to the other 3 teams know they're in. This is fair by Adam. Yeah. Didn't they lose? Was it the UMass game where they gave up the 10-man ride goal at the end of the 3rd quarter? Like empty net.
They've had multiple empty netters allowed on the 10-man ride this year.
Multiple. What was the clearing today from Michigan? 21 to 25. Hey, it helped today. 21-25. But they're going to have the motivational gap. The other 3 teams here know they're in. Ohio State is in the NCAA tournament. We've seen at least the last couple of years the teams with the bye might be a little. You want the bye because you be healthy. You get to rest up, but we've seen some teams. The teams with the last since they've done this, the teams with the bye are 3-5. 2021, Maryland won and Rutgers lost. 2022, they both won, Maryland and Rutgers. 2023, they both lost. It was Hopkins and Penn State. And 2024, it was Hopkins and Maryland. So the record for the teams with the bye in the Big Ten is not great. It's 0-4 the last 2 years. That is something for Rutgers. I just wonder, Michigan the last 2 years has done this through offense. We saw it. They get hot at the faceoff dot, the offense gets humming, and it's just the tidal wave. If you're Rutgers, can you grind out 3 straight close defensive games? That's a tough ask. It's tough to do. They won today with 11. If they beat Ohio State, it's probably gonna be what, 1st to 10? And then we saw the way they beat Maryland. I mean, that game was just the rock fight to end all rock fights. I don't know if you can win 3 straight games without an offensive explosion somewhere. Your goalie play has to be Stoller has to. If Stoller has a bad game, Rutgers isn't going to win. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have a bad game. He's a great goalie, but if he has a bad game, he ain't going to win. I think Ohio State's. They've moved up to 8th in RPI. They're ahead of Harvard and Syracuse, so I think they still have the bad loss, but they beat Penn State, who's 4, Notre Dame, who's 6.
They should be.
They also beat Rutgers, and that might stay in the top 20 as a win. They beat Michigan, so I think they're fine.
At worst, I think they're Stevens or IL's like number 7 seed if they lose.
So maybe you could argue they're playing for a home game if they lose.
Mm-hmm. Worst comes to worst with.
But I think
Army in the back of the ACC.
I think they're fine. As far as the tournament goes. So we'll see with Rutgers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're going to have the motivational edge. I think the games they'll play, I think the Ohio State game will be competitive, but I just don't know if you can win 3 games in a row like that with that defense. having to do
might
it
be a tough ask. Yeah.
10, 10-8, 11-9, this type of.
And then you got to do it against Maryland or Penn State.
Yeah, that's tough. They have the face-off play too. Paletto's a good face-off guy. So we'll see. But yeah, good one for Rutgers. Nice Big Ten run. They've kind of had conference play. They've had.
We want to just run through the Ivy League quick before we'll continue the chronological order before we get into ACC play. We'll do the two Ivies.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. First off, Princeton might be peaking at the right time. 18-7 win over Yale. They got the meme score on ESPN2. But whereas the Tigers, the past couple of weeks, have been kind of sluggish start, letting teams into games for a bit long. You saw that with Penn last week, and it was a bit of a concern. This week, they leave nothing to doubt and hit the accelerator right away on Yale and don't even look back. So suffice to say, the Tigers hit the flip the on switch back on in a hurry. Not that they were doing any bad by the past couple weeks anyway. They were winning still, but against the Yale team that's been looking better and better as the season's progressed, that's a highly encouraging sign when you're heading into conference tournament and NCAA tournament.
Until the last 2 weeks for Yale.
Yeah,
until they lost to Albany last week.
Yeah, they lost to Albany last week. But in Ivy League play, they were looking better. But that's exactly the type of performance you want to see if you're a Princeton Tiger fan.
This game was never close. It was 11-2 at halftime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Princeton took 60 shots. Princeton's had some games this year where they just put up. Was it that Dartmouth game? They took like 60-something shots. Princeton took 60 shots, 38 shots in the first half for Princeton. That's 37 on goal too. Man. A lot of saves.
And again, I think this is
13-3 going into the fourth. Yale didn't score those last 4 goals.
They kept the accelerator on through the whole till the final horn.
I think Princeton was just like they tell Yale score those 2 goals early in the fourth, and they're like, "All right, we're just gonna just don't let them." Money Mitch is just like, "I want to see you run it up, boys."
Yeah, they scored the last 2 goals of the game, and the bench got it.
Well, the last one was like the extra man because I know Ryan was in the chat. I was like, "We need one more for the culture," and then like Yale got the penalty. I was like, "They're gonna do it. They're gonna do it,"
and they did. Yeah, but I'm saying like this is good schedule management out of Madeline. They didn't have their best performances the past couple of weeks, but they did enough to, get the victories. And then here, okay, we're a week away from the Ivy League tournament. Let's go back to mashing heads again.
I think they probably would have been the 3 if they had lost, so it would have just been jersey color. But there were seeding implications in this game. And so
Princeton could have been the. Let me just see.
I think they would have. Yeah, they would have. They would have been the 3. I'm not sure though, because it would have been that like 3-way circle.
They could have dropped down to 4 because Yale would have had the head-to-head.
Well, yeah, but the problem was
because it would be all be 4 and 2.
And Yale, Princeton, and Harvard all went 1-1. Would have went 1-1-1. Princeton obviously just said, "Yeah, we're not good on that."
No,
yeah. Princeton from the beginning, we said it back in whenever their schedule came out that this looked like the schedule of a team who thinks they're going to play on Memorial Day weekend. They wanted to test themselves. They wanted to have obviously the schedule in case that they weren't bothered by going 3-2 to start or 4 and whatever, as long as they had tested themselves and got some big victories and obviously had the, metrics and stuff to support it. And yeah, they got through that gauntlet about as well as they could have. They lost to Maryland at home. They lost the top 2, number 1 and number 3, I guess in the poll, and number 1 and number 3 in RPI just flip-flop. Maryland's 1 and Cornell's 3. So. And now that they were hitting on the accelerator again.
You think if they beat Harvard, they've kind of locked themselves into a top 3 seed.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, 100% for sure. They might be either way, depending on how it shakes out. But not a question about it. They're in that range. I'd love to see Cornell and Princeton play again.
Is Crowder suddenly top 5 goalie? He's been really good. There's number 3 in adjusted save percentage on last reference. I mean, like Yale was putrid on offense, but a lot of that had to do with product having 19 saves. Like, so feel bad for Paquette. Paquette had 19 saves as well, but he came up.
Paquette made 18 saves.
Jesus Christ.
It doesn't always work out for you when you have a big save number. Sorry about that. The great effort with 19 saves, but Crodic with his own 19, to only 7 goals let in.
His save numbers this year are every week. It feels like he racks up tons of saves. I do think that says something. One, Princeton doesn't win a lot of faceoffs, so that's part of it. Is that they do play quite a bit of defense, and I still keep thinking like this faceoff thing is going to get them at some point. Now maybe it winds up getting them in like the Final Four. Other than that, but yeah, faceoff play in this game was actually Princeton did well. I'd have to look at the numbers what's the number per quarter? 9, 12. It was 12-7. Yeah. Honestly, McMeekin was good in this game. McMeekin won 12-21. Both teams had like weird numbers. Like both teams' starters played well, and they just dominated the backups. Because Kobe Ginder went 1 of 8, and Nick Waymeyer went 4 of 12. So when it was McMeekin against Mac, it was pretty even. And then when they faced the backup, they just ran them over. McMeekin has kind of come around a bit. Gil mentioned this: Army versus Princeton. If it's a quarterfinal against Notre Dame with Hagstrom and Lynch, it just gives me some concern, but this is what you want to see, man. This is how you want to see. We talked about you need to see teams playing their. You don't have to be winning going into May necessarily. I mean, Princeton obviously did win. You don't need to win your conference tournament, but you got to be trending in the right direction with how you're playing. And I tell you, man, this midfield I keep talking about. Someone I think it was KM in our chat last week. I don't know if he's in here right now. Mentioned Peter Bonanno, who had 4 goals on 5 shots. Tucker Wade had 2 goals.
And midfields win you games in May.
100%. And then Colin Burns. 5 assists. We've been talking since the beginning of the year. Can they get another initiator? Can they get a way to not have the ball be a Magassi's stick so much so that somebody else can draw attention and slides and really open it up? And that's what you saw. Like, Yale was just sliding to everywhere. And Princeton was just hitting the backside and, open man every single time. So I would love to see. I mean, Cornell beat Dartmouth. Great season for Dartmouth. Played Princeton and Cornell really tough. And
they just missed out on the Ivy League tournament at 2-4. But you think about it, they gave Princeton and Cornell a run for their monies. Win against Penn as well. But yeah, trending in the right direction with Dartmouth. Good.
Yeah. Cornell had a tough. The Brown game and the Dartmouth game were kind of a little difficult for Cornell, but they got through it. I'd love to see Cornell and Princeton play again Sunday. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't. It'd be bragging rights, and it would probably be it'd be 1 seed line, basically. Whoever wins gets the
1 or 2, yeah.
Maybe the number 1. Depending on what Maryland does. Maryland has to probably take an L, maybe to Penn State. But yeah, Gil makes a point here that Safes brought this up, and we've talked about it so much for the past couple of years. This Penn State team, they're just, especially compared to the rest of the Ivy League, they are a just different level athletically. It's a Cornell's. I think they're a different level athletically to Cornell even too, which that'd be interesting to see in a rematch. Cornell's just offense is just so.
Yeah, Cornell's skill more than strength.
Yeah, is so skilled, but Princeton, they're offensive midfield, defensive midfield. They got so many guys, always athletes, and then. It all came together for them when they had those guys, and then they had the guys who've been playing at Cuse, Stevens and English. They had like the 2 best two-way midfielders in the country on the same team one year. But yeah, man, they are really something athletically, and I'd be interested. Yeah, I'd love to see that game again. We'll see. Yale's Yale is the team to watch. We'll see. I mean, the way they played defense today, brother, Cornell would hang. What Princeton score? 18. Cornell would probably hit 25.
They gave them a combined 37 goals to Princeton and Cornell this year, the Yale defense. So.
Yeah, I don't.
One other Ivy League note: Harvard gutsy win in Providence against Brown, 11-10. That's a game that could have swung to the wayside.
Yeah, I said it that the bubble there's no bubble right now. It doesn't exist. There's the teams that are in, and then everybody else.
But if you had 2 bid steals, that makes it very precarious, and that would have put you in there.
Yeah, 100%. Also, they would have had 2 bad losses, and you never want to be an outlier. The committee can look badly. Look at Duke a couple years ago, 22, when they had 3 bad losses. The committee basically just said, we don't care that you're 7 in RPI. You have 3 bad losses. This has never happened before. You're out of there. And Harvard would have been the only team with 2 bad losses. So being an outlier cannot be good. I don't think they would have sat comfortably on Selection Sunday had they lost that game to Brown. So, yeah. Cornell, Yale, we'll see.
Strange things happen in the Ivy League tournament with 1 seeds, so keep that in mind.
Cornell's been the 1 seed 3 years in a row and lost. I mean, this is the 3rd year they lost as the 1 seed the last 2 years. Cornell did lose to Yale in 23. In like a 25-19 type of game. It was something insane. That semifinal in 23. Different Yale team, certainly. But you never know in the Ivy League. The 1 seed hasn't won the Ivy League tournament since 2019. And they haven't made the championship game since 2019. So who knows, man? Like we'll see. I don't think Yale has quit necessarily. That's one thing you can give Shea. But yeah, it does feel like we're going to be getting Cornell and Princeton. Maybe Harvard can pull an upset. Cornell and Princeton in Ithaca on next Sunday. That'd be fantastic.
All right, we'll bridge the Ivy League talk with the ACC talk with Notre Dame doing it again where they're completely lifeless on offense for half the game, but then a Kavanaugh avalanche, so to speak. If you like that pun, hit the like button, please. But a big spurt out of Notre Dame coming, aided by a goal coming into the half, get things a little bit on the right direction. Then just go on a spurt in the second to start the second half and hold it off. And that's what Notre Dame does again today with a 10-8 victory over Penn. Notre Dame can't keep on getting away with this, can they? But I guess it's working, at least for now. But yeah, I guess repeat what we talked about last week against UNC. It's a concern that they go a long stretch without scoring, but then when they do get to score, it's like you can't stop it. It's a very weird place they're at right now.
What was the final score of this game?
10-8 Irish.
So Notre Dame has had 7 quarters in their last 4 games where they've scored 1 or fewer goals. That's half, basically. Half of their quarters have been scoreless or 1 goal. And now the thing was, against UVA and Carolina, those were basically all in the first half. And you thought with this game that, the offense scores 7 goals in the third quarter, it's going to be the same story. They're just going to run by it. But then the offense sputters in the fourth quarter again. I think that it feels it's been an ongoing theme on this show. How good is Notre Dame? And we vacillate between maybe they're the best team in the country and maybe they're a back end top. Well, they're not a top 10 team. I think I would not put them in the first tier of. If you wanted to put them in the first tier of title contenders, I think you'd be doing
very
that
back end
firmly based on reputation to a degree. I think they're in that second tier, and I think as we see, that second tier is basically entirely comprised of the ACC. And as we see with these ACC teams, it's a lot of swings. They're all good. They're all good teams, but you get
when Notre Dame's playing at their best, they look like they could three-peat. The issue is they've yet to put 60 minutes of that together.
The Duke game. They were just begging Penn to take this game. Yeah. I mean, 8 turnovers in the final period for Penn just literally just it was like just giving them so many opportunities to tie it up and do more damage. Just couldn't do it.
Look, they're going to play good defense, and they have the face-off play. But yeah, Michigan and Duke are Notre Dame's two. Not only do they win, they look dominant. And that's when it felt like, okay, Notre Dame they're humming again. And then they played Syracuse, and they just didn't get out of the box. You are not going to win 2 straight games in the NCAA tournament if your offense basically doesn't show up for a half. You can maybe get out of it in the first round. Princeton is up 10-1 on Notre Dame in this game. Now, granted, you could say, what's the face-off situation? That's the counterpoint. But the Maryland in a quarterfinal is taking ripe advantage of the way Notre Dame's played in the first half the last couple. Your defense can keep you in it, and they have the defense to do it, but you're just not. Also, the thing with the NCAA tournament is NCAA tournament games are rarely also shootouts that kind of go crazy. Teams a good team you play on like the quarterfinals will shrink the game against you.
That's it.
Yeah. Like you'll be, you might be down 5-1, but you're not, or 6-1 or what have you, but you're not going to get the same number of possessions you get in a regular season game. Teams are going to take up more of the shot clock. You commit turnovers, they're going to string long, periods of time together. Might be less penalties called.
Fewer transition opportunities.
Yeah, so that was that Virginia game. Notre Dame won that Virginia game in transition. They scored like 2 or 3 transition goals. Yeah, it's harder. It's just harder to come back in tournament games.
The defense. These are the best teams now. For the most part, except for like some this years.
So I think that they could do this and maybe get by in a first round game. I just don't see you being able to, depend on who you get. Maybe you get a defensive team like Maryland or Ohio State, in which case, man, trying to score 10 goals on Maryland or Ohio State in a half is that's hard business. Maybe it's an offensive team like Princeton or Penn State. Those offenses can kind of light it up. So I think Notre Dame can still make a Final Four? Yes, I think off air at the end of the show, when me, Safe, and Mark were talking about it, I think I picked them to make the Final Four. So I'm not giving up on them by any means, but I do think that the pattern is concerning for sure. And yeah, their offense is just weird. Like someone on Twitter tweeted us like, how can the number 2 adjusted offensive efficiency, offense look so bad for so long? I'm like, well, there's 2 parts of it. One, early in the season, Cleveland State, Marquette, you score 20 goals against them. It's 20 goals is 20 goals. But the second thing is like, well, they do have periods of time on offense where they look very good. They scored 7 goals in a quarter against Penn. They scored 11 goals in the second half against Carolina. So their offense can look very good, as Ryan mentioned. But yes, when it looks bad, it looks very bad. It's hot and cold. So, are they the offense that's number 2 in adjusted offensive? Is that really how good their offense is? I don't think so. Is their offense as bad as the offense we've seen the first halves? I don't think so either. But being volatile is usually not a good thing in the tournament. It's usually not great to be. You want to be consistent. And that's how Notre Dame has won these championships. They don't make mistakes. They're the same even keel the whole time. And they make you beat yourself. They don't beat themselves. So haven't quite been the same team in that regard this year. But obviously, their first seed in the ACC tournament. It's all in front of them. Man, we're hitting the hour mark. We got about 11 minutes left. But we got quite a few. We got a nice little house here. What should the people do, Ryan? All the people in here.
Hit that like button because I think we're going to have some extra time here in the ACC because of the wackiness going on in the ACC. And if you really enjoyed, hit the subscribe button too. But we do like we got a big crowd tonight. We like to see that. We hope you're liking it too. And as I said, hit that like button if you're enjoying it, because we sure as heck are. Well, at least we have been until this segment. But first, before we get into my tool shed, let's talk about what so the result is the same as it's always been. Duke beats Virginia 10-9. This is now 20 years of Duke beating Virginia in the regular season. 20 years since Virginia has beat Duke in the regular season. However, how we got there, let us get our favorite wrestling promo of all time to explain what happened, our reaction to what happened in that overtime.
This is Robbie Marino, CZW with Zandig. Oh my God, what the fuck just happened?
What do you mean what happened? What are you, blind? Jesus! There was 5 of them! It took 5 of them! Justice Payne! Hate Club! The Hate Club's dead! Nick Gage! Nate Hatred! Who do you think you are? Nobody does this to Zandig! Nobody does this to the wife beater! Zandig, wife beater, Nick Mondo! We are the most ultraviolet force on the face of the earth! Oh my! Oh! Yo, you're gonna die! You are gonna die! I guarantee it! I am gonna kill you! You people have not seen anything! This is just the start of fake UTV! I am the ultraviolet icon! This is Robbie Marino! This is CZW, the most violent federation on the face of the earth! You just wait and see how far we're gonna go! I'm out of here!
Apologies for the language.
What the hell was that?
The greatest wrestling promo of all time.
Oh man, I like how we even managed to shout out the names at the end. You know, like this classic proper promo. Just make sure to, gotta get the.
We are the most ultraviolet.
Name of the show, name of the promotion. He didn't get the date, but that.
Oh man. So Duke wins. They clinch their spot in the ACC tournament.
Yes,
but they keep the streak alive. But what this performance art in that overtime?
Patrick Jamison saved a shot. I'm almost certain with his ass. Like he was literally sitting on the ball, and I think it hit him in the butt. Like right between the legs. Duke had, and this just doesn't do it justice. Duke had 2 turnovers. It's a great point. Yeah, if you're worse after nobody, you don't feel good about any team after watching this. Like,
it's like, did you win? Yes, at what cost? Everything.
Yeah, I'm just rewatching the game-winning sequence and.
Dude, that game, the Ben Ware, the game, Virginia, Ben Ware on that end of that game, like standing at midfield, is just the epitome of that disaster. What a bad idea!
Good idea.
I mean, he has a guy like wide open downfield, and he just loses the ball.
He's just sitting there. They did not have a timeout in that situation, right? Yeah, they did not have a timeout at least, so we can't say Lars.
And they didn't get it. They didn't get in the box either.
Well, and they didn't have a timeout anyway.
I think they
burnt it early on.
Didn't they have to take the timeout? Because I don't think they called the timeout immediately. Maybe they did. I feel like they had to take Virginia. Look, Virginia got the best look of overtime. I mean, honestly, yes. Schutz had it time and room from like 6 yards, and he shot it into Patrick Jamison's cheeks. But I think Virginia took the timeout because they were like fumbling the ball, which Virginia fumbled the ball several times, even before they gave it over at midfield. Before Duke scores, their possessions are a failed clear, Andrew McAdory getting bit up by the turf monster. Duke took 1 shot in overtime. And not like one. They won the face-off, took one shot and won. No, they had 2 turnovers, a failed clear, and 1 shot in overtime, and they won. I just have no. Oh man.
I love the shot of Dano at the end. Yeah, he just looks like a golden god, just like clapping at justice.
He was in immaculate form with that white polo today.
Oh man, he looks like he's just ready to get on the lake.
Absolutely ready for the boat on Long Island.
That clap is like heaven does when his like nephew like brings it back in the truck and puts a boat right into the water properly. He's like, yeah, good job.
Speaking of looks, Mike Murphy wearing a sweater vest over like a long sleeve button up. He looked like he was working. He looks like he worked at J.P. Morgan.
He was like this chief technological officer for Plantier or something.
He was wearing like a long sleeve, like a button down shirt, and then a sweater vest over it.
Meanwhile, conversely, in this game, you got Lars Tiffany rocking the throwback T-shirt.
Oh, the power tee.
I love the Virginia lacrosse or something like that.
Power tee from Lars.
See, but the issue is with Virginia lacrosse, it's the inverse. Whenever they look good, they play their worst, and when they look like trash, they play their best.
Yes,
if they wore the smocks, they would have won.
Virginia has had good uniforms basically all season, and they finished 6-8. And there you go. Like they have to go back. It's honestly, well, for me. I think that they should just keep wearing bad uniforms and or good uniforms and losing, because I get to see Virginia in good uniforms, which always looks good. When Virginia has good uniforms, it's amazing. And I get to see Virginia lose, which is also good. Virginia winning always sucks because A, they're wearing bad uniforms, so you're just grossed out. And 2, they're winning. It's just also bad. So just keep doing it, but they'll probably go back to the smocks next year. Well, Duke was up 7-4. I was tempted to be like, if Duke's offense can play like this because we saw them play well on offense against Cuse, and then they had 7 goals in the first 20 minutes or something of this game. Like Duke plays like this, Duke can make a Final Four run. And then I think they scored 1 goal the next 30 minutes.
Yeah. Then the offense is completely shut down.
So Duke it's not the same story been all year. The defense is terrific. Patrick Jamison had his best game of the season today, but that offense don't have playmakers offensively, and every team's got a weakness, but some feel greater than most. I think Duke's offense falls in that category, and obviously they'll have a tough path to go to a Final Four, but Virginia. This is the first time ever that Hopkins and Virginia both had losing seasons in the same year. It's only the second time.
Both winless in conference.
It's true. Also, only the second
first time since 2013 that both of them are going to miss the NCAA tournament.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought Lars did a great job with this defense all year. I think that they played. I think you could argue from start to finish, it's the best defense they've played in the season. That's not to say it's the best defense they've played at any point during this Lars run, but the championship years, the defense really peaked in May. It turned it on at the right time. They played great defense at the end of the year, but Virginia usually always takes a while for their defense to get going. I thought they figured the defense out pretty quickly this year, and the defense played really well. John Schroeder was awesome. I mean, he made some big plays, takeaways, big hits that kind of turned the tide in that third quarter for the Cavs. The goalie play. I mean, honestly, you give them better goalie play, they might win 1 or 2 of these games. I don't think it was really a big detriment to their season, though. It's the offense. McCabe Millen, I don't want to overdo it because I just think that'd be harsh, but I think he shot 1 for 11. And, man, a lot of those 11 just weren't good shots. You just can't do that in a tight game like this. I think that they're going to need to redefine his role next season. Because look, his brother's coming in, and I think his brother's a superstar in the making, Brendan. So I think he'll probably run the offense, which is a lot to ask of a freshman. But I just don't think the role they have Millen in this year is the right role for him. Other than that, they didn't have the pieces offensively. Not that I don't think Cassis has done a bad job necessarily. I don't think it's his fault that they had 3 freshmen who could have played get hurt, and a lot of, I think there have been some recruiting misses and things like that have left them in the situation they're in. But I also just don't really know what they need to find an identity offensively. What is Virginia's offense without Connor Schellenberger? How is Virginia going to play in the future? That's, I think, Hopkins offensively, I think, needs to get better, but I also think that they still know how they want to play. It's just, do they have the pieces to do it? Virginia, conversely, what is the identity of Virginia's offense? How do you want to play? They couldn't really play fast this year because it meant that they left their defense too exposed, and I don't think they have the same level of athlete in the middle of the field that they had in past years. Virginia in the past could play slower and largely just beat dudes off of dodges. They ran by you. They were better. They don't have that right now. So what is Virginia's offense? Post Schellenberger, post Cormier. They don't really have the inside guy like Laviano or Cormier. They don't have a Matt Moore or Schellenberger right now. And again, they got talent coming in. We're in extra time. But yeah, I think they need to find 100%. I mean, he never won the Tui, but he did win most outstanding player in the tournament as a freshman, which honestly might be more impressive. Schellenberger was everything to that offense. And obviously he was so clutch too when it came down to it, but they need, I think it's going to be an interesting conversation for them going forward. What is this offense? They got some holes to plug. Need a goalie. Kind of need a face-off guy again. They played a lot of face-off guys, and they kind of patched it together, but they haven't replaced PD properly. They need to find some pieces offensively. It's going to be an interesting year next year down in Charlottesville. I don't think it'll be 6-8 over in the ACC again, but I also don't think it's. I mean, is Virginia a top 10 team going into the next season?
No, not off the bat. They got to grow into it.
Yeah, so that's that kind of I think same thing. I would put them and Hopkins probably in the top 20 going into next year, but I don't think that they're definitely not top 10. Closer to top 15, and that it kind of tells you some things. So we'll see how they respond. It's the first time that Lars has faced adversity in his run. Really, I mean, it happened so quick. Second year this is the first time they missed. Second time they missed the tournament to Lars. The first one was the first year. Then they made the tournament the next year, 2018, and then the third year they started 0-2. I guess you could say that, but they won the title in year 3, and then won the title again after COVID, and so this is the first time it's been kind of back against the wall, Lars, a bit, and he's good in that spot. Also, just in general, Virginia is like, if you go back to the end of last year, I know they made the Final Four. And that's always what matters. But remember, they were on a big losing streak going into the tournament. Last year, they lost. Last year, was it 3 or 4 in a row? Going into Virginia lost 4 in a row going into the tournament last year. So Virginia is 8-13 in like last year plus the end of last season. I mean, that's over a 20-game stretch, 8-13. Now look, they play a great schedule. I mean, there's a lot. A lot of those 13 losses are to great teams, but I mean that's the end of the day. Their 6 losses last year were the top 4 in RPI, and their losses this year are to. But at the end, I mean, look, that's being the ACC. No one weeps because, oh man, your schedule's already lost games. Well, yeah, too bad. Too bad, too sad. They gotta win these games, but
1-7 conference.
Yeah, there's a long enough arc over now with Virginia that the performance has dropped off. So we'll see if they can get it back.
Mm-hmm. By the way, before we get into our final game, feature game, completely blew this. We didn't mention CJ Kurtz breaking the all-time goals record.
Yes. Yeah, great. Did it on the first goal of the game.
Yeah. I did it very quickly.
Lost sight of it. CJ did it in 61 career games, I believe, which is like 10, 11, 12 fewer than Peyton Courtman. I think 12 fewer than Peyton Courtman. He's the only guy in the top 12 of all-time goals to do it in 60 games. Or he has the fewest games of anyone in the top 12 in goals all time. And his 3.68 goals per game, or that's what it was. It might be even a little higher now. I don't know how many goals he got today. But when he scored that goal, his goals per game mark was the 4th best in Division I history and the best of any player in the last 45 years. So pretty astounding career that CJ Kirst has had, but I'm sure if you ask him, it's, he came in as a freshman and lost on Memorial Day weekend. I think obviously the goal is to go out with one more win this year.
And I think it's pretty safe to say it's going to be a Cursed War-a-thon coming this May.
Oh.
If you like that pun, hit that like button.
I don't think that's happening, buddy.
And then the nightcap. UNC 14, Syracuse 12. Cuse makes it a pretty interesting one in the final 2 minutes, but UNC with the victory. That gets them the 2 seed in the ACC tournament. Syracuse is the 4 seed. So you got UNC, Duke, and Cuse, Notre Dame. I'll let you guys do your analysis first before I add my 2 cents.
I was thinking Carolina, Jake. I remember us in a pre.
Talked you out of it.
We talked about it. Out of it.
Ryan actually, freaking Ryan always picking against Cuse. He was the only one of us to get the game right.
Because I know what I see out of my team.
Just
this guy.
I mean, I didn't know what was happening there at the end, especially if that
the Dome guys. The Dome guys were awakening their slumber towards the end there.
They were wrestling themselves out of bed. Yeah, no, for sure, just a little bit late there. Especially the goal that at the end to cut it to 1 was actually upheld because it still would have been like 38 seconds or so left on the clock, and just the way Cuse was scoring at the end, it kind of looked like just an absolute collapse in the making for North Carolina. But the big win. I mean, for Brushy and his boys, I remember when we were talking about this game, I was like, I did feel like there's something weird. Like Carolina did seem to play up, when they're on the road. The Army game, they were on the losing end of it, but it was. Right there, almost, really for taking it. They thought we did crush Owen Duffy with that last minute like that. Maybe they, tied that game up. And the Hopkins game, that was on the road. That was a big the Duke game that was on the road. Offensively, that wasn't that impressive, but, the way they were able to withhold that Duke offense, but the Petro's D was impressive. I think sometimes it's really great to be a coach's son. The love, the expertise, and you also got that leeway to go 0 for 9 for your first shots. And I love young Petro, so I just make jokes.
The whole team was shooting 2 for 22 in the first quarter. So he wasn't the only one.
It's just no one else is making it. Keep shooting. But then just to turn it around, and then the next 10 make 6 goals out of your next 10 shots. He is something to watch, young Petro. I love that. He's I think a great talent as well. But just Petro, it's just the energy, obviously the name. You just kind of, just got this charisma to him. He's got a kind of a knack for the moment. It just feels like when he gets really hot, you really see that team feed on that energy, and I think it was really impressive. But for those 4 goals in a minute, the way that the Carolina defense held that Cuse offense in check in the Dome, because that's kind of at the end of the day, Jacob's my choice. I talked myself out of it, but I'm thinking, Cuse in the Dome, the rocking and rolling. It's the rock show. they'll be able to get that offense humming again, and being able to keep them in check. I thought that was really impressive by Carolina State again. The end kind of got away from them, but yeah, it's a big win for Carolina. It's kind of, I don't want to say make or break for both because really there is no bubble here. But if there is a big steal, I don't know if I want to be Cuse right now. They still have a chance with the ACC tournament coming in. And at least getting a quality win. You can't get a AQ out of it. But maybe getting another win, it will be Notre Dame now, right? Because that's the you guys are playing, right?
It's Cuse Notre Dame, and
So like get another win against Notre Dame. Maybe that gets you a more comfortable seat in case if there is some type of catastrophe in the Patriot League or Big Ten. Rutgers makes a run.
I think unless Cuse wins 2, I think the home game is done.
Oh
yeah, they're not getting home game.
Like they have. I mean, they're right now they're 11th in RPI. And their resume is, I would say, definitely worse than Army's. Granted, Army's 2 wins are hanging on, 19-20, Rutgers and Yale. I think they've got the weakest. They have the weakest resume of the teams at large. The at-large team.
Yeah, they got a couple of sneaky good wins, but it doesn't translate to RPI like Towson, like Colgate. It doesn't.
Towson and Colgate are. I don't think Towson can get in the top 20. And Colgate's 24th, so that's would probably require Colgate winning the Patriot League tournament. I don't know. Duke one year had like all their teams they play, all the like one bid AQ.
Straight? Yeah. No.
Yeah, like Vermont, Jacksonville, all those teams won, and they got them in the top 20. So maybe that happens for Cuse. Maybe Towson, Colgate both win their conference tournaments and get in the top 20. We'll see. But yeah, I think they're the home. I think what I'll say is going to wind up being very similar to Ryan will echo. Look, the officiating was bad. It was bad in general. Just I don't think they really seemed to have control of the game or kind of know what was going on. The Dewan hit on who scored the goal for Carolina that after the push call, was it Suchek or Harshbarger? They didn't even call that on the first glance.
They had to go to review for that. The push call is terrible. I mean, or the missed push call. It was a push. They called it for playing without the stick, but as Kark mentioned on the broadcast, he was playing without the stick because he got pushed. Because he got pushed, yeah.
So,
and that's where all discombobulated. But hey, that's Syracuse. They take a situation where they get a bad roll one or a bad call one way or another, and they let it, and they just compound it. And I'll get to my rant after you make your points, Jake.
Yeah, and the end of the third quarter, yes, in the score, fair. I mean, there's a goal, the 10-7 goal, and a man-up goal. That's 2 goals. But Carolina was up 9-7, 2 goals even after that. Carolina was up, 5 or 6, 14-8. So, do I believe Syracuse is severely hard done by? Yes, I think it's bad. It's not good. What I will say is that Q still had an opportunity to get this game back in the balance in the fourth quarter before the big comeback, and they just didn't play with enough composure. They get down 11-7. They take a bad penalty again, and they fight it off.
I think that's the difference between Syracuse and all these other programs is when something doesn't go their way, they don't let it get in. They don't compound it. They move on.
And it's not that it necessarily totally hurt them, but it's when you get down like that and you have to mitigate the damage. And not only do you have to mitigate the damage, you have to kind of play close to perfect. You have to. Spallina takes a penalty. They have turnovers offensively. They just were not. You got to stay the course. You got to fight through adversity, and I just don't think. I even don't think. I believe it's true at this point. Syracuse is not good at playing through adversity. I think when it's great, they're a great team, but when the going gets tough for them, they just do not play with the same level of, and it's things that you see from the beginning of the year. I mentioned, man, Syracuse is taking a bunch of penalties against Towson and Jacksonville and whomever. Well, that's shown up now. Those you take penalties in big wins against Jacksonville and Towson. You're going to take penalties in key spots in ACC games. And I'm not going to say that, again, the call was bad, the push call, 100%, no question about it. It sucks, but and look, even the Finn Thompson stick in the goal mouth. Yeah, that's a tough. It's unlucky.
Yeah.
100%.
That's the rule. Thank you, Bill Tierney.
Look, Syracuse got dealt several bad hands in this game. There's no question about that. It didn't shine on.
But they only have themselves to blame.
But at some point you got to fight through it. You have to show that, at least you have to show that you can push through it. And it's also, I even go back before this happened. It was 9-5 Carolina at one point. Syracuse blew how many clears in this game? 6 or 7?
Mm-hmm.
They had,
and it's another instance where they're topping off at no more than 2 goals a quarter.
Yeah, I mean, offense. Look, you hurt your offense when you just blow 6 clears. I mean, that's your offense just ain't gonna get possessions, and you're already losing faceoffs to begin with. So
yeah, and this one wasn't even really much on the offense as much as they did not have possession this game.
So even worse, 10 out of 17.
To me, the concern is that Syracuse lost 2 games at the beginning of the year, to Maryland and to Harvard. And the Maryland game they lost because, look, Maryland's better than Syracuse. They lost the Maryland game because Maryland's better than Syracuse. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. They lost the Harvard game because their defense played atrocious. Now, that's not good. You should not lose a game when you win 28 of 32 faceoffs. Your defense gives up 50% defensive efficiency. That's bad. But nonetheless, Syracuse was 9-2 at one point, and
coming off the Notre Dame win, and then they lose to Cornell, which again, Cornell's number 1. Fine. It's the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, in the Cornell game though, mistakes starts.
that is our always our talking point with crease rules. Thank you, Big Bill.
But when you're 9-2, the thing with Cuse, there was things that this Cuse team could hang their hat on throughout the year. Exceptional clearing team. They were up there 90+% at one point. Fewest turnovers in the country of any team. They always played hard. You can do a lot when you're a team that clears great, doesn't turn the ball over, and you play hard. That's a very high floor when you do those things. So what's happened in the last 3 weeks? Well, they're turning the ball over a lot. They turned the ball over a lot against Duke last week. They turned the ball over a lot against here. Bad clearing. And I thought that we mentioned last week, I just didn't think they had a lot of juice against Duke. They felt very low, flaccid, kind of limp. I didn't like the energy. And then they come out here in the Dome and you're like, all right, this is going to be, it's the Dome. Cuse it's a rock show in the Dome. They're going to come out firing. Senior night, big crowd. And it felt low energy again. It didn't feel like they were playing, not a lot of intensity. Sam English felt like the only guy on the field who was playing Sam English played this game like it was an NCAA tournament game. Everybody else played it like it was.
And McCool had it.
McCool was good. Yeah, goalie's a different story, but McCool played very well. Mm-hmm. But Sam English, the only field player, he was playing that game like his life depended on it. And that's what Sam English does. But everybody else has got to play that way too. This is a big game. And that to me is what's concerning, why I feel like the vibes for Cuse feel off. And certainly, look, you lose 3 in a row. The things that this team was doing well early in the year, it's not doing well anymore. And that's not the recipe to win NCAA tournament games. And they're just the lack of the way they respond to adversity as well. It's not the sign of a well-coached, prepared team every week. So that to me is the worry. And I know Cuse fans are going to mention, this is a hallmark of the Gate era and all that, yada yada. Sure, I'm not going to, dispute the feelings or argue against the feelings Cuse fans have about this last 4 years or the coach staff, whatever. I'm just saying, when I look at it, to this point, this team feels like they're hitting a wall, and that's concerning to me because I don't know why you'd be hitting a wall at this point of the season, unless there's in the way that they're doing it is just kind of, why is this happening? Why are you clearing worse than you've been clearing all year? Why have you they had a bye week a couple weeks ago, I think, a couple days off.
Yeah, it was in between the Hopkins and Manhattan games.
Yeah, so you're not. It's you. AFL makes a good point. Tierney did get the shot clock in there. That's fair. Yeah, win some, lose some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, why are you hitting the wall to this degree?
Especially after you came off a coaching tenure defining victory over Notre Dame.
Yes, it feels like not handling success well is what it feels like, and that's obviously concerning because if you're going to make a run in the NCAA tournament, you got to handle success well. You got to, if you get a big win in the first round on the road, you got to back it up with a quarterfinal win. If you finally get to the Final Four, I mean, at that point, great season, but you got to back up the quarterfinal win with 2 games in 3 days. So, yeah, I'll give it up to Ryan now.
All right.
But I think what Ryan's going to say is I think mine's similar. Just the problems this team has feel kind of on the face of it right now. It feels kind of in your face a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, this feels like 2021 again. Heading into the season, big expectations. We got the roster. It's time to finally break the streak. And for most of the season, it looked like it. It was going to go well. Again, nothing wrong with the road loss to Maryland. The Harvard loss is what it is. I mean, obviously, I was in D.C. during the Cornell loss, but again, it's Cornell. They're number 1. But the past 2 weeks, it's the bad old days are here again. It looks like the late Desco era. Again, this is a year where the rest of the ACC graduated oodles and oodles of players. And in these ACC games, Cuse is looking like the inexperienced bunch. Because the lack of composure, as you said, Jake, and I think this goes beyond what we've been talking about all the time with outdoor games and road games and neutral site games and all that. This is a preparation thing. This isn't a home-away split thing. Because they lost the game to Harvard, too, at the Dome. This is a preparation thing. And if they're one and done in the ACC tournament, and they're one and done in the NCAA tournament.
Don't even mention the nuclear scenario.
Yeah. Or if they're one and done in the ACC tournament and get bid stealed. This is the late Desco era.
Maybe worse, honestly.
I mean, again, the expectation into this season was this is the best shot at making the Final Four again. It's been 12 years. This is our opportunity. Yes, as Mark said, UNC also didn't lose a lot, but just in the grand scheme of things, we laid up that whopper against a Duke team that graduated their entire friggin' scoring from last year. We were struggling against a Virginia team that graduated all of its scoring last year. Yes, Cornell was one of the other teams that had a lot of experience. We lost to them. But vis-a-vis the rest of the national landscape, this was supposed to be the experienced team. And this isn't on the players, I don't think. I think we've got the talent. The guys want to play hard. I think you see that in the, I think, yes, they're losing their composure at times, but it's not for a lack of trying. I think it's frustration. And I think this is circling down to coaching that I don't know if this coaching staff is getting this team prepared enough. Because you see it in these lapses where they go quarters at a time without scoring. There's no plan B going on. They're not getting up for these road games. They're not getting up to adjusting to playing outside. I don't know whether that's they're practicing too much indoors versus going outside the weeks before those games. I don't know. I know it's been a brutal winter in Syracuse, but still show up the day before the game then and get some practices in on site or something. It's if the nuclear option happens, you got to think about making a huge swing.
Ooh.
I know this is making me sound like everything that I've hated about the Syracuse fan base all through the years of how I thought everyone was being ridiculous with Desko until 2021 happened, and that was finally when you had to cut base. Even I saw it. And I don't want to sound like a Syracuse fan lax poster or any of that. But if this team ends the season on a 4 or 5 game losing streak, with this group, you might have to move on from Gate.
I feel like we should pin it there just in case, it's just like pin that right there. Like, I don't know. We don't want to get
we'll put a pin on that. Yeah. Well, if that bridge crosses, this could all change next weekend. Cuse could rattle. They're more than capable. They beat Notre Dame before. They should be much better against Duke and UNC. So if they get a second shot at them, they win the ACC tournament, then things are come to the right direction. But there's questions that need to be answered with this program right now. I mean, it's one thing with the Cuse women with Trainer. I'm giving them a pass. You could have one lackluster year. They're also very young with the women's team. But with this men's team, you have to continue to show progression. They made the quarterfinals last year, which is great. But you're looking at this in a 4-year lens.
Yeah.
And if you're Syracuse and only making one NCAA tournament, if the nuclear option happens, you got to do something. Whether that's Gate, whether that's March, something. We'll put a pin on it until, if the worst case scenario happens. I don't know about that, Mark. Hopkins fans can get nuts too. But
yeah, I don't think I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to go here right now and say the coach needs to be fired. But I don't think the angst is unreasonable.
You're just asking questions. You're not saying you should be fired. You're just asking the question.
Well, and I just think that.
But if you're Syracuse, you might have to make the bold move. I mean, you're an ACC program that's supposed to be competing for Final Fours, and it's a different level of expectation. I mean,
yeah, it is.
Again, this could change on a dime next week.
Even beyond it could change week to week. It's that if you polled the fan base, not even poll the fan base. If you polled the rest of the lacrosse, landscape. If you polled, if you polled the people who vote in the Inside Lacrosse media poll, do you feel great about where Syracuse is at as the program, coaching staff, all that? I don't think you're getting 75-80% yes. I think you're getting, I don't know. If you're like, what's the future? Where do you see Syracuse in 4 or 5 years? Do you think it's great? I think that's a different. And sometimes you got to think forward looking. Gil's point is, this just who Syracuse is? It might be, and in that case, it's not good enough.
It might, yeah.
Like if this is who they are, and this was a team that came in ranked. This is the team that came in ranked second in the media poll to start the year, had super high expectations to win a national championship, or at least make a Final Four. Again, this is why we should put a pin in it and have the conversation in 4 weeks. But to Ryan's point, you got to make progress. The first year, okay, we can write it off. The way everything with Desko ended was just a not a good situation. Second year, you had to get better, and they did. They got better. They were not a tournament team in 2023, but they were hanging around there. 2024, obvious improvement, got to the quarterfinals. You got to at least match expectations this year. to. I'm not saying you got a match to not get fired or anything like that. I'm just saying that you have to. If you lose in the first round, you got worse from last year with the same roster, and not only the same roster, as Ryan mentioned, everybody else around you does not have the same rosters as last year. In a more open landscape, you got worse. That's not good. And obviously, if they miss the tournament, it's not. Is it likely to miss the tournament? No, by no means. But if it does, then certainly things took a massive step back. And I'll let Ryan answer this, but it's I don't think anybody's saying if Cuse makes the quarterfinals that Gary Gait should be fired. I don't think that's the case. Mm-hmm. But if if they lose in the first round, or they, God forbid, they don't make the tournament, that would be worse than what Milliman did, because Milliman went miss quarterfinal. So that'd be a different.
Yeah, and Milliman, I think too, if Hopkins doesn't make a step up next year, you got to think that seat's going to warm up too.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Look, these are the gigs for a reason. That's it's part of the deal. I mean,
yeah, Hopkins, Syracuse, Maryland are on a different plane when we're talking about this. Virginia too. These are programs that you got to treat like college football programs. You can't.
Virginia went 2 out of 4 in a 4-year stretch. Virginia went 2 out of 4 for the NCAA tournament and fired a coach with 4 national championships. I mean, now look, there was more. You could do a 10-hour podcast.
More to that.
You could do a 10-hour podcast in the last 5 years of Starja, but that's it. But again, it's you should put a pin in it again, because the season is, there's so much there's not many weeks left. But
3 weeks ago, I was smiling ear to ear, thinking, "Hey, we've turned the corner."
It was Liberation Day.
And Syracuse's stock sunk just like the stock market the 3 days after it.
But yeah,
just because they've been having the worst 3 weeks, last 3 weeks. Syracuse, lacrosse, or Shedeur Sanders.
So the AF Health, is that for Milliman or for Gait?
That's for Gait. Yeah, this is Gil. This is a good point by Gil. That Duke loss was, or even if you win,
better to lose the Notre Dame game than the Duke game.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the Duke. Honestly, if you come back and win this game, I think you're good. You're in good shape. But obviously, but that Duke game was just so concerning because it just felt so punchless. They just had no. Yeah, it was so flat. They lost because it felt like they didn't get off the bus. And that's why it looks bad. I mean, you lose again. That's why it feels. These last 3 games feel different than the Maryland game. I know Cuse fans got hung. I know Cuse fans get hung about every loss. Same with Hopkins. Same with Virginia. That's what happens. But the Maryland loss, I was on here. I'm like, guys, they just got beat. Sometimes you lose. The Harvard loss was obviously bad. I mean, in the circumstances, but nonetheless, they lost because their defense played badly. Okay, your defense.
Yeah, and Harvard turned out to be a very good team this year.
True,
so and their defense not as bad.
And their defense has been good this year. So one great today, but by and large, their defense has been good this year. So okay, your defense has a bad day. Shit happens. Crazy game. These last 3 losses to me are more concerning. Even the Cornell game, not a bad loss by any means, but you still, I think, would like to follow it up with a better run. Like after coming off the Notre Dame, you want to, be in it a bit more.
Yeah, they started too slowly.
Yeah. And then the last 2 losses are just kind of inexplicable in the ways they kind of played out. So we'll see. I guess we can transition this to RPI or like tournament bracket kind of conversation.
Yeah, let's just go over the remainder of the scoreboard for today's games. We won't worry about last night's games, though. Hobart 16, UMass 15, and we'll discuss a tiebreaker from hell situation.
When we do the conference tournament rundown, we'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just absolute mayhem with the A10 situation. Stony Brook beats Hampton 28-6. Mercyhurst, double OT victory over Wagner. 12-11 for the Lakers. Bellarmine holds off Queens 11-10. Binghamton beats Vermont 12-7. Bryant 17-12 over UMass Lowell. Fairfield caps off CAA regular season play with a 14-8 victory over Monmouth. Though Towson, we'll get to Towson, will clinch. Well, they already clinched home field, but they add on to it with a, I think, perfect CAA run. We'll discuss that in a sec. St. Bonaventure, shouts to them. Big upset in A10 play. They beat High Point 10-9. High Point's going to be the number 2 seed in the A10 tournament. St. Bonaventure with their first ever A10 victory with a statement. VMI beats LIU 15-12. So I believe that got them into the NEC tournament because I think Detroit Mercy held the tiebreaker over LIU. What's the situation with that again?
Do you just want to do all the conference tournaments? Like, do you just want to run through the conference tournaments, or?
Yeah, after I just do this, Air Force 16-15 over Utah in overtime. Lemoyne 8-7 over Robert Morris in overtime. A lot of overtime games today. Jacksonville 16-12 over Mercer. Towson caps off an undefeated CAA run 9-7 over Hofstra. Detroit Mercy 15-4 over Cleveland State, and Albany 18-6 over NJIT. All right, so yes, let's run down the conference tournaments, Jake.
All right, the ACC tournament will be played Friday, Friday night, Friday afternoon and evening. I don't know, but it'll be played Friday. The games will be Notre Dame versus Syracuse in the 1-4, and North Carolina and Duke in the 2-3. Virginia misses. The championship will be played Sunday. In the America East, Albany is currently playing NJIT right now.
Albany's won. That game's final.
Oh, that game is final. Okay, Albany won 18-6. So the America East tournament will be Bryant is the 1 seed, and they will be, I believe it's from Bryant. Who won Bryant and UMBC? Yes, Bryant is the 1 seed, and they will be playing Binghamton because Binghamton beat Vermont today to get the final spot. So it'll be Bryant versus Binghamton in the 1-4 in the America East, and UMBC and Albany will be the 2-3. That conference tournament will start on Thursday. In the A-Sun, this one I'm not sure. You got? Did they tweet out? I think they might have tweeted out actually. Let me, because there was like a 3-way tie at the top in the A-Sun, and
so the A-Sun.
Let's see if they've tweeted out yet.
Let's see.
I'm not. All I know is that
you guess what? Their one tweet is regular season champions showing Utah, Jacksonville, and Air Force.
Yeah,
that's helpful.
Jacksonville, Air Force, and Utah all finished 4-1, and then Bellarmine finished 2-3. So Bellarmine is in as the 4. What the rest of that, how that shakes out, I do not know. That's your answer there. All right, the A-10.
So just to set the scene of this, Hobart last night was thinking that they held the tiebreaker, and then the next morning the A-10 goes out and says, no, UMass won the tiebreaker.
So we had it wrong to begin with. We thought the tiebreaker was goal differential because, to be fair, we just decided to read the A-10's website.
Yes, no fault of Hobart's own because it's on the A-10's website.
Like the A-10 website said goal differential. Apparently, that was not it. So we tweeted that Hobart fans thought that they were making it through. And I'll be honest, I love Hobart fans, but I just think they kind of read it in the way that was most beneficial to Hobart. So Hobart replied to me and like Mark's tweets as well that the goal differential thing was outdated. And they said that the tiebreaker was, they sent out a tweet, the tiebreaker is A, head-to-head between tied teams, B, composite win percentage. Ryan, actually, go see if you can go to Hobart's account and find this tweet because
yeah. So Hobart tweeted.
So they said the tiebreaker is head-to-head between tied teams, which would be they all went 1-1-1 against each other.
Here, I'll get it up for you. I'll present it real quick.
Okay.
For you guys. So
why you guys do that?
Yeah, this is what Hobart did.
The segment championship is scheduled. Utah Bellarmine at 1 on Friday. Airport Jacksonville at 4 on Friday.
Okay, so Utah's the 1 seed, and then Air Force and Jacksonville are the 2, 3. Okay, thanks, Safe. So that will be What time is it, Safe?
1 for Utah Bellarmine, 4 o'clock for Air Force Jacksonville. Jacksonville hosting.
Okay. Those will be on ESPN Plus, and the ACC will be on ESPNU, I believe, on Friday and Sunday. Maybe ESPN2. One of them be
ACC Network, I believe, for the ACC tournament.
You're right. My bad. Yes, ACC Network, of course. All right. So they said that it's head-to-head between tied teams, composite win percentage versus all conference opponents. That's also was a tie. Each team's win percentage versus the highest common opponent in the standings. That continuing down through that was a tie because I think they all lost to Richmond and High Point, I think, but they all beat St. Bonaventure. And so it then became goals against the tie teams in head-to-head competition, which let's be honest, it's just a freaking insane topic. Like, why would you not just use goal differential? But be that as it may. Ryan, can you scroll down?
I'm going to take another screen. That's a screen grab, so I'll get Mark's reply in a second.
So it went to goals against tie teams, and St. Joe's had the fewest goals against. So Hobart replied with those 2 tweets. They say it went to goals against. Okay. And then this might have been when, because I think the Inside the Crosse article mentioned that Hobart was not certain that they were actually in I think that's what the IL article said. Safe, maybe you have it. It said that Hobart was not sure that they were in on Friday.
The players thought they did. They mentioned the tweet thread with Mark, us, and their main account, and then noted that the UMass press release had no comment at all about
and the Hobart press release, I don't think had anything either.
Yeah, there's they said the follow-up post-game press the release did not go as far on the limb as the tweet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when we finally started looking at it, we're like, and Mark replies. Maybe the fact that Mark's tweet didn't get a reply kind of tells us that they started to realize maybe it wasn't going their way. So the 4th tiebreaker, as it says, is goals against of the tied teams in head-to-head competition. And then, all right, St. Joe's has 16, UMass has 26, Hobart has 30. To go with what Mark said here, you don't break a 3-way tie with one team. You break a 3-way tie as as a group, the 3 ways. So this tiebreaker is broken as, okay, St. Joe's has the fewest. It'd be like if you did goal differential. You would just take the team that had the best goal differential is the highest seed, then it's second, then it's third. That's what they did here. St. Joe's has 16. Okay, they're in. UMass has 26. Hobart has 30. Boom, there you go. Hobart seemed to think that what happens is St. Joe's is in because they have the 16, therefore it's broken, and then it's UMass and Hobart beat UMass, so they get in. But that's not how you break the tie. It's, you have to use all these. And if you use all these, St. Joe's and UMass, get in, and they did. It was the correct decision. Now, and Gil makes a good point here. Look, guys, this is preposterous. I mean, it is, if you are going to have standings on your website, you need to have a tiebreaker too. There's no excuse for the fact that we do this every year where we run through and we're like, I don't know what the tiebreaker is. I can't find it on their website. It's
and then the conferences wait till the last second to publicize.
It's just some 25-year-old exactly SID. They just say, "Hey, Bill, go dust off the books, figure it out."
Like, if you make it at the beginning of the year, right? So just have a PDF that you just
it's a link
on the
right
website.
here. Yeah, all tiebreakers right next to the championship link on the conference website.
Like, yes, they have these championship. This happens every year because, hey guys, you have like 4 teams you put in your conference tournament. There's probably going to be a tie somewhere. You only play like 5 games, or even at the most. You're going to
use these tiebreakers.
The most case, the Patriot League plays 8. There's going to be ties, and it's inexplicable that this happens. It's kind of amateurish. And again, this is the plea right now. You need to find everyone next year. Put the tiebreaker link on your website. It's just insane. So the A10 tournament will start Friday. Richmond will play. No, A10 is Thursday. Pardon me. My correction. A10 is Thursday on ESPN Plus. Richmond will play at 11 a.m. against UMass. And then St. Joe's will play High Point in the second semifinal. The A10 tournament will be at Sweeney Field at St. Joe's. Where's the A-Sun tournament
at? Jacksonville.
Okay, so I don't know, man. A-Sun tournament this year will be Utah's the 1 seed, but it's a rotation, so it'll be hosted by Jacksonville. America East, Bryant will host it, and the ACC is in Charlotte. Big East out in Denver. Georgetown will play Marquette in the 1-4 semifinal, and Villanova will play Providence in the 2-3 semifinal. That will be Thursday evening, and it will be on CBS Sports Network.
Yeah, Marquette. Well, by the way, one big note from last night: Denver losing 11-18 to Marquette.
The way Denver season finished, man. Denver
Final
lost
4 to not even making the Big East tournament is.
And after beating Georgetown at Georgetown, holding them to 3 goals, they lose. They get down 9-1 to Providence, and then lose by 7 to Marquette. Just an ugly, ugly end to Denver's season. All right, Big Ten tournament. The quarterfinals are obviously today. This one will be held at Michigan. It'll be on Big Ten Network. The first semifinal, I think, at 5 o'clock. The first semifinal at 5 o'clock will be Ohio State and Rutgers. And the second, I believe, at 7:30 will be or probably 8, closer to 8, we should say, will be Maryland and Penn State. The CAA tournament is going to be Towson. It will be hosted at Johnny Unitas Stadium at Towson, and the Towson will play against Hofstra at 4 p.m. So it'll be a rematch. Towson-Hofstra play today. Towson-Hofstra 4 p.m. on Thursday, and then Fairfield will play Drexel in the second semifinal, the 2-3. The Ivy League, Friday night on ESPNU.
At the Cough.
At the Cough, Cornell will play Yale, and Princeton will play Harvard. It's a good point, Brian Powell. We can maybe touch on this.
Brian. Yeah, that is a very nutty point.
When we get back to it. The MAC. How many teams does the MAC do quarterfinals?
They have quarterfinals tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. So
tomorrow they got Quinnipiac, Canisius, and Manhattan Marist.
And the top 2 seeds are Sacred Heart and Siena. And I believe Sacred Heart is hosting that conference tournament. Sacred Heart looking to go back to back in the MAC. That's tough, man. Sacred Heart can do that. That's really impressive. It's always tough to go back to back. In the MAC. In the NEC.
Yeah, this is the one I'm confused about the tiebreakers.
You know what you should do, Ryan and Jake, or anyone else who's confused about tiebreakers for NEC Men's Lacrosse Conference. If you go to their site, hover over the word NEC Men's Lacrosse Championship. The first link is Men's Lacrosse Tiebreaker Procedure. Now, this is a professional, grown-up conference.
There we go.
I mean, it lives and dies every 2 years, but
when it lives,
at least
it lives fully. When it lives,
it
lives
has
fully.
integrity.
Yeah, it's right there. It's it's above the Men's Lacrosse Championship headquarters. They're like, you know what? People need to know which teams get in. So let's put that as the above link.
The NEC is going to be calling the NEC professionals a stance. Listen, you know what? Like integrity, maybe.
Grown up as adults. They're adults.
Adults.
So let's take it seriously.
Yeah. Is the the stance.
Okay,
this is a good point. Lemoyne is hosting and they can't earn the AQ.
Yes.
This has been our this has given us life. So
it's in Syracuse. So Syracuse gets conference championship lacrosse after all.
Yeah, about that. So the other, if Lemoyne wins, it'll be the other semifinal that is deciding.
So I hope they have the Lemoyne game first, so you don't have a WWE locker room esque watching a TV and celebrating winning the.
Lemoyne hosts the 1 seed. No, they play at 4. But after the first game. But.
So Lemoyne is going to play Detroit Mercy, I believe. Shout out Detroit Mercy, making it in. And is it LIU or VMI? That is the
LIU versus Robert Morris.
Okay, so LIU versus Robert Morris, and then Lemoyne versus.
Wait, so how did VMI lose the tie break? Let's go to tie break.
It's a 3-way tie of 4-3, and VMI. They all went 1-1. I think they might all went 1. VMI lost to Detroit Mercy.
Okay, yeah, let me see. So have LIU already clinched the berth. Winner, so Detroit Mercy wins versus Cleveland State. Yeah.
VMI lost some tiebreak in that 3-way.
The link is great. They give you a breakdown of like what can.
Yeah, I like
kind of like that Patriot League poster that puts up the color coded.
Review. Yeah, he's awesome.
Shout out to him. But yeah, they did a similar one for, like I said, adult conference, man.
I respect that. I got a lot of respect for that now. Patriot League is, I believe, our last conference, and they will play Tuesday. Lafayette will host Navy. Lafayette, 3 seed in the Patriot League. Lafayette is going to host Navy on. They're both at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. Lafayette hosts Navy and Lehigh hosts Colgate in the Patriot League. Army and BU are the 1 and 2 seeds. Army is hosting at Mikey, and it will be on CBS Sports Network Friday.
CBS Sports Network as tradition.
Yeah, CBS Sports
Friday,
Network.
Sunday.
I will have all of this out in a tweet. Oh, but yes.
And Patriot League reseeds.
Yes. So the could be.
So they're like the NFL.
If Navy wins, it'll be Army Navy in the semifinals. At Mikey, should be cool. So I will have all this in a tweet thread after we get off here. I'm going to put it all together. Just run through all of them. I usually do this. I'll pin it to the @college_cross Twitter account, so be on the lookout for that. All right. Before we get out of here, let's look at the RPI.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Powell, great point about Loyola, Denver, UVA, and Hopkins all being done. When's the last time? You're kind of like arbitrarily picking teams here, but when's the last time all 4 of those teams missed an NCAA tournament? If ever, has it? I don't know if it's ever happened. Yeah, never. Because
imagine going back to the mid 2010s and saying, "Hey, none of these 4 programs are going to make the NCAA tournament."
In 2013,
Mark,
Loyola, Hopkins and UVA missed in 2013, but Loyola and Denver both made it. In 2021 and 2022, Hopkins missed, but 2021 Loyola and Denver played in the first round. Remember, Loyola beat Denver 21. UVA won the title, and then 22, UVA was the other 3 missed, Loyola, Denver, and Hopkins, but UVA was there. So, yeah, all done on April 26th. It's pretty crazy. Those are 4 national championship programs. There ain't a lot of those, And heck, you could throw this in here too. If Yale doesn't win the Ivy League tournament, Loyola, Denver, UVA, Hopkins, and Yale all missed the NCAA tournament. And heck, if there's
of course,
a
Cuse ain't safe.
If they're Cuse or heck, if maybe Duke. I mean, I think Duke's probably fine, but whoever winds up last in that ACC, pecking order, which we'll look at, those are all 4 national championship winning programs too. So pretty crazy year. All right, yeah, the RPI. Maryland 1, Princeton 2. There we go, I got it up. Maryland 1, Princeton 2, Cornell 3, Penn State 4. North Carolina moves into the top 5 now with that win over Cuse, which sets the Tar Heels up really well for a high seed in the tournament. Notre Dame is at 6. Fighting Irish also look pretty good as well, probably in that 5 seed spot at the moment. But maybe behind us, Ohio State, so they'd probably be 6. Mark mentioned the 3 teams sweating bid steals are Syracuse, Harvard, and Army. So these 3 teams are right in the same neighborhood at 10, 11, and 12. You've got Harvard, who has 4 top 20 wins over Syracuse, Michigan, Yale, and I think they beat BU as well.
Yep, they beat BU.
Syracuse at 11, who has a top 10 win over Notre Dame.
Though Adam was saying something interesting. If Syracuse loses to Notre Dame, that becomes a top 5 win again.
It could, yeah. It's kind of interesting the way this is shaking out now, because Syracuse and Army, if you look at it, Army has the top 5 win. Syracuse doesn't, because Carolina moved ahead of Notre Dame in RPI. So that's how that all shook out. Yeah, right now, I think that if Army loses to the Patriot League semifinal, I think they are done. But if Army gets to 13-1 and then plays, if they play BU again, BU's going to be in the top 20 in RPI. So that'd be good. Could Colgate maybe get in? I think maybe Colgate could get in there if they make a run to the championship.
But that's also going to help Syracuse.
It would, yes. But Army needs to get to Sunday in the Patriot League, and if you lose, you just better not be a bad loss. And if that happens, I definitely believe there's going to be a conversation around Army. Now, Army is kind of right now hoping that these Rutgers and Yale wins hold, because otherwise it's just the winner of UNC. But look,
it's going to be tough with Cornell and Maryland. No, not Maryland, Ohio State. Ohio State, Rutgers has a fighting shot.
They do.
That might get interesting.
Yeah, it could. It's going to be, I think you've got Big Ten, the Ivy League. You're also watching the Patriot League for Army. Obviously Army can win it themselves and be in there and book their spot. And
then just to check with Richmond, because you see them at number 9. Everyone else in the A-10 is too far away, though, if they lose to, say, St. Joe. Well, obviously, if they lose to High Point, that's going to be a non-starter. But if they lose to either UMass or to St. Joe's, that's going to be bridge too far.
It's going to need to be St. Joe's. UMass is tanked now. They're 35th. So they're going to have to lose to St. Joe's. I just don't see it with the Richmond thing is, if Richmond beats Duke, Richmond's making the NCAA tournament. It's not even a question. I mean, Richmond would be, they probably are ahead of Duke and RPI if they win that game. If Richmond beats Cornell, they're in the NCAA tournament. The way it shook out with Richmond is crazy. We've often talked about with these teams like a Richmond, well, hey, if you won this game or this game, maybe you'd be in the conversation. Dude, if Richmond won one of those 2 games, they're in the tournament. But they didn't. Richmond metrically, if Richmond's going to take a hit, probably if they not a significant one, but they might drop back to 10, 11, 12. I just don't know that Richmond has the wins. I mean, there are 2 wins over Virginia and St. Joe's. Everyone else has. Harvard doesn't have a top. If it comes down to Harvard and Richmond, maybe. I don't know. Here's what I'll say. If the committee wants to put Richmond in, I think they could put them in. And I'll be honest, I don't know that there would be a lot of people yelling about it. Like, are people going to really be upset if a Syracuse team that lost 4 in a row misses the tournament? No, I don't think they will be. If Harvard, I think if you ask a lot of people, they think Richmond's better than Harvard. So if it comes down to Richmond Harvard, I don't think that people will be too bothered by Richmond getting in. I think if it comes down to like 13-2 Army and an ACC team in that 4th spot, man, if they don't pick Army, I think people are going to be upset. So that's what you're watching for bid steal territory. You're watching the Big Ten, you're watching the Ivy, you're watching the Patriot League, and the teams right now sweating are those three teams. We'll see what happens. I don't think people will be crying a lot for whoever the last team out is. It's right now. It's not even a conversation. But the skill says you give some, but it feels wide open, and if you didn't get in, I just don't think people are going to be too like. I don't think people are going to feel bad for you. Harvard and Syracuse and Army can all book their spots. Harvard can beat Princeton and they'll be set, and obviously they can win the AQ. Syracuse wins a game against Notre Dame again, they'll be in a good spot. And Army might be the one. If Army's like the last team out of 13-2, I think people will probably be upset about that. But like if they lose to their Patriot League semifinal, bad loss. So right now it's there's not a lot of drama, but as we can see, the last couple of years we've seen conference tournament weekend has gotten pretty crazy. So looking forward to it.
All right, and if you like conference championship week like we do, why don't you hit a like button on this video? Gone over 2 hours. It's the Power 2 hours.
Power 2 hour. Power hours.
Power hours. All right. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at college_cross. And we'll be back at it. We got a lot going on this week, right? We're gonna we got the usual podcast. We're gonna try to fit in a Friday night watch along.
Yes, Friday night we will be live. I'll be live. If Brian say if anybody, we'll keep the door open. Anybody wants to swing by whenever, hop in for a bit, hop out. We will be live Friday. I don't know when we'll go because the Ivy first semifinal I think is like 4. So we'll probably go
I'm commuting at that time.
Yeah, so we'll probably go at like when the second Ivy semifinal starts, or around when the second semifinal set. So, not happy hour, but evening. That second Patriot League Ivy ACC semifinal. We'll go live for that. And then we will be live Sunday night, Selection Sunday. Always safe, always a fun time.
9:30, late start.
Oh, God, 9:30. I don't even want to think about it. But we'll be live. Join us for Selection Sunday, the live show. We'll go live 30 minutes before, so 9 o'clock. That's obscene. But we'll be live at 9 o'clock to break it all
Hurry
down.
up, NCAA, and make these things earlier. Like,
It's just...
air it at 7. I got to get up at 4:30 in the morning on Monday mornings.
The bracket is done at like 5 o'clock.
It's done at 9 o'clock the previous night. They just got to plug and play the Ivy League and Patriot League.
You're not wrong. Yeah. Oh man, this sport.
All righty. Well, thank you all as always for joining us. Battle of Ontario is going overtime again, so check that out. Chris might, you never know because they are doing that remotely. Chris might make it on air by the end of that overtime. We do love that our alumni have been really in great places between Chris with the NHL and TNT, Marissa with what she's doing in women's sports. We feel like proud parents sometimes with our alum.
And we're here, just, love of the game.
Yes.
Still going strong.
All righty. Also, have a good night, everyone. Stay hydrated and take care.
President. Enjoy this outro.
Yeah, Jake, you're taking care of the outro.
Ford, Honda, Chevy, Beamers, and minivans. Over 600 cars, trucks, SUVs. Are you listening, man? Let Eastern Motors put you in a car today. Let Eastern Motors finance it all the way.